Hey everyone, it's Jonathan Weaver with the Housing Counseling Department at the Mon Valley Initiative. Thank you. It's February 8th, I guess it is, and it's probably my favorite time of the year because we start kicking off our home buyer clubs for 2024. And once again, Ted George from Huntington Bank has graciously given us his time to come in and share some of his knowledge. He also brought someone new for us today, Jake Carson, and Jake is a CRA officer in the Pittsburgh region, covers a couple branches in Pittsburgh and Westmoreland County. So that's kind of a good overlap for us in some of the areas that we are. So welcome, Jake and Ted. As always,
Thank you.
thanks for helping us again this year.
Sure.
Thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
Good. So the purpose of the Home Buyer Club that we started, and Ted, I think you've helped us probably for 3 or 4 years now. The purpose that we always had in mind is that we wanted to talk with people that maybe we've already met with. And as they're working on credit or as they're working on savings, we wanted to bring additional information that maybe might be helpful in preparing and strategizing towards home ownership. So I know we're going to do that tonight. So let me share the presentation that you guys have and we'll get underway. Does that look like it, Jake?
That's it.
All right.
Buying a new home with Huntington Bank. It's presented by Ted and myself. We can go to the next one. So why you may want to be a homeowner. I do like this slide. Housing has become more affordable. That might not be the case right now, but there is definitely some houses out there. It's not like there's nothing. It just, you have to look a little harder. Interest in real estate taxes paid on your loan may be tax deductible. That's always true. It's your property. You can paint, landscape, remodel as needed. I mean, basically, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And building ownership interest, known as equity, which is why many believe owning a home is a sound investment. I think that's obviously the most important. Because if you buy a home and you move in 3 years, that means you're selling that home and you're making some money off of it at least. There's probably hundreds of more reasons why buying a house is a good idea, but these are just some of the basic points of it.
But I think, at least even rent right now is crazy expensive. So I think we're seeing more and more people get into the arena. And no matter how many people are on tonight, you guys took the first step, and this is major. Taking the first step. So many people don't do that. So congratulations for being here and taking the first step.
Ted, I know you're a homeowner.
Sure.
Jake, do you own a home?
I do. I live
Okay.
over in Verona.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So, the next screen. Here we go.
I'm considering it as an investment. Just like I was saying, it is an investment. You're not just paying rent to your landlord, like Ted was saying. This is something that you can have for the rest of your life, or if you decide to move or change jobs, go anywhere else. It's still an investment. It's still really important that you have that because you can sell, you could rent it out at that point. It's one of the few things that doesn't really depreciate like a car would. So it's very important that it is an investment. It says 65% of Americans surveyed feel investing in a home is a good idea. I would even say that's probably more nowadays. This was a couple years old when we pulled this data. I would say it's even higher now because rent has been going up. I think a lot of people feel it's important. Percentage of renters who found it easy to obtain a mortgage climbed above 21% for the first time in 4 years. I find a lot of people who are in that situation where they're renting and they just are kind of sick of paying the landlord 100% of their money, and they want to find a new space. And that's what me and Ted are here for. We're here to get all your information and find what works for us for you. And the New York Fed feels an aging population and current renters are groups who will be looking to own over the next decade. And that's very true. So are you ready to buy? This is a kind of a loaded question, but there's a lot of complexity to it. Do I understand the cost of home ownership? So there's the basic cost, like, you have to get a mortgage to purchase a home. So there's down payment, closing costs, tax and insurance. But then there's all the other costs of owning a home. Your water heater breaks the first year you're there. You need a new washer and dryer because they go out. Everything's on you. Your landlord isn't in charge anymore. You're the landlord now. But does the house I can afford meet my needs? That's also important. A lot of people I can I consider like when you watch the Property Brothers and they bring someone to $1 million house and like this hits everything on your list. But that list might be a little expensive, so you kind of have to be realistic of what you're looking for. What additional costs should I consider? Just like I was saying before, there's a million other costs in your life. So like I know Ted does this, and I definitely do this. When we're looking at what you can afford on a mortgage, we're not just going to take the top of your budget and then be like, oh yeah, you can afford $300,000, $400,000 home. We look at your whole budget. We look at what you could possibly afford. We ask you what you feel comfortable with affording and a monthly payment, because that's really what's important. When we run this stuff, we don't take into account your child care, your grocery bills, your internet, all that stuff that we don't take into account. And that's what you have to always consider when you're looking to buy a home. What is really truly in your budget? Not necessarily the top of what you could possibly afford, but what truly works for you.
That's
Do I have a steady source of income? That's always important. When we look at any borrower, we're looking at your last 2 year job history. So having steady income is very important. On my monthly credit obligations, more than 50% of my monthly income. So that's just important because if you have a lot of debt, regardless of how much income you have, it can negatively affect purchasing a home. So we want to try to mitigate debt, and there's ways that we can help you out with that, debt consolidation, things like that. But it's something to keep in mind when you're looking. If you're starting the process, you're like, I'm 2 years out. Definitely consolidate some of your debt. Definitely try to pay off some of your debt, because that's can negatively affect you. And the less you have, the better off you are. And am I comfortable with a new mortgage payment totaling what is it, 40% of my monthly income,
35.
35% of my monthly income? Um, just like I was saying before, your mortgage payment is going to be 35% of your monthly income, and you have to take into account all the other expenses you have. So if you were trying a house and you're like, I can possibly do it up to 45, 50% of my monthly income, but is that really leaving you hanging high and dry later on?
And just real quick on that, Jake and Jonathan, I always suggest people, whenever you're going to try to buy, especially if you're currently renting, or even if you're not currently renting, if you think you can afford an $800 mortgage payment, then and your current rent is 500, practice putting away that extra $300 a month
Mm-hmm.
and get ready. Not only is it good for you to do, the underwriters look at that when they're making a decision on a loan, and we can show them you're putting away $300 a month, and you're in that range where you want to be. That just helps with the approval process. So try to do those types of things, and it gets you ready for the new mortgage payment.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Make sure you're comfortable. And the third benefit, Ted, of course, is that you're saving money. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefits and some great practice. So for anyone out there, I mean, when we meet and we look at income, we use 29% as an affordable monthly income. So, Jake's showing you something here with a little bit higher, 35%. So I think every individual needs to figure out what's affordable for them in their situation. So
Mm-hmm.
fantastic.
So how much can I afford? This is some pretty easy math here. So your gross monthly income before taxes, $4,200 a month. Your monthly total budgeted debt is about 40% of that. So it's 1680. You have your car loan, credit card, student loans. That's about 700. So you subtract the 700 from that 1680, and your comfortable monthly mortgage payment limit is 980. Now that's your comfortable mortgage payment. If your mortgage payment's 1,020, it's not going to obviously break this, but it's a good to know what you're looking for, because there's a lot of houses out there that could make that payment be 1,900. And you have to be realistic of what you can afford, because you don't want to overstretch yourself. And the last thing you want to do is to get into a property that you can't afford, or is stretching your budget that you can't afford anything else. So doing this kind of budgeting on this left side of the slide here is very important, just to do it for yourself. Because again, me and Ted will do this, but other mortgage officers might just look at you and be like, oh, you can afford top of your budget here. This is what you can afford. Me and Ted are a little kind of different breed of mortgage officer here. We're going to look at everything in a whole picture, and we're going to make sure it's right for you. But you always want to cover your bases on your own and make sure you're doing your own math to see what you can afford.
And so, Jake, if I'm remembering that 980 that you're showing for a comfortable payment, that's
Yep.
principal and interest, taxes, and insurance.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. Yeah. I always try to factor in taxes and insurance, especially accurately, because that can be a big part of your mortgage payment. You look on the right side here, um, your expenses, your taxes are 31% right there. I mean, on a mortgage payment, if taxes in that area are, you know, let's just say 3,000, it's a little higher. That's a pretty big chunk of your monthly mortgage that you're putting in there. It's a pretty big chunk.
Yeah. And Ted, I don't know if you've noticed, homeowners insurance for me has gone up over the past couple of years. So it's becoming, closer to 100, 125, depending on
Yeah.
situation. So yeah.
Crazy expensive. And that's it, Jonathan, that's a great point because I think a lot of, especially some of the online sites, you go on and look and they estimate for homeowners insurance and they're putting like 30 or 40 bucks a month. That's not even real. It's not even close.
Not even fair. Yeah, it's not fair. Um, and to anyone out there, that's sometimes how mortgage lenders try to, get you, right? They lowball everything. And then when the rubber hits the road, you're not quite prepared, or it becomes larger than maybe what you were expecting. So,
Right.
we try to be educated as consumers. We try to look behind the curtain a little bit and see some of those details in there. So great points there, Ted.
John, that's exactly right. Some people might not be as honest, have that same kind of integrity. That maybe Ted has, like, where they might just try to lowball you on the estimates, and then when it comes down to the final amount, you're like, why are these numbers so much higher? It's because they were kind of just lowballing you to get you into the door. And really, they want we think that honesty is the best policy.
And to anyone out there, Jake and Ted probably won't tell you. I'll tell you. Mortgage lenders are usually paid on commission. So the more they write, the more loans they get, the more income they get. So I think for Ted and Jake, it's probably a little different as CRA officers
Yes.
with Huntington, that they probably have a salary of some sort and probably a production, some incentive to help as many people as possible. But when people are paid on commission, sometimes they'll do anything to get you in the door. And once you're in the door, then it becomes kind of backpedaling on what's out there. So let me
Hey,
go to the next
Jonathan,
slide.
quick question for you. In Allegheny County, do they reassess after somebody buys?
And my understanding is that it's up to the school district to put that into motion. So, I think in areas like historically, notoriously, Penn Hills, Woodland Hills, they seem to be very active as far as trying to get that process into motion. I'm always been in the mindset, a transfer stamp really just tells everybody what you paid for the property. So it's probably a basis that they could use to establish, what the fair market value is. So I think it's up to the school district to get that underway. So depending on your school district, they may do it this year, they may do it 3 years, but I think everyone needs to be prepared that it's possible to change. And I think every situation is different. If you're buying it from a home from someone that bought it just a couple of years ago, you're probably not going to see that big of a change. If you're buying it from grandma who's been there for 50 years and they're showing you pretty low taxes, I think you need to read between the lines and say, there's a chance that these low taxes could be evaluated when I purchase the property. So yeah, it's a school board that's going to set that into motion. So
Thank you.
which is different
I
than
like this
Beaver,
slide
right?
too.
Different. Yeah.
So this one's upfront out of pocket expenses. So this is like if you were to find a house that you love, put an offer in, and they take it, and you get a purchase agreement, and then now you start the process with your lender, like i.e. me. You have to worry about your down payment. So as low as 3% if you're a first-time home buyer, 5% if you're not, 3.5% for FHA loans. You could do is no percent down if you're if it's a VA loan in certain situations. And then prepaid escrow. So this again varies depending on the house, but let's just say for the sake of example, it's $1,800 a year for your taxes, right? That's $150 a month that you have to put in after you purchase. But in the very beginning, you have to put in a year's worth. into escrow. So you have to fund $1,800 in that month. And then if it's you consider also homeowners insurance, that could be another $900. So you have to fund in 2,700 right up front. So that's always something to consider. It could be a big chunk of this kind of table here. Earnest money between 500 and 1,500. That's very typical. That's hand money basically to them to know that you're serious, keeping the deal moving. Home inspection be anywhere from 200 to 400. I've seen it be less. I've seen it be a little more, but that's pretty standard. A home appraisal starting at 450. I believe ours is 495.
I think we're estimating now 525.
525.
But one thing to for everybody to keep in mind, there are lenders that collect for the appraisal up front, and there are lenders like Huntington that don't, where if something goes wrong, you're not out that $500.
Right.
So, again, it's something for first time buyers or all buyers to remember for sure.
Termite inspection, maybe another one. Closing costs, so anywhere from 2 to 6% of the cost of the house. We do have programs at Huntington that can very much help with closing costs, depending on where the house is located, or depending on the type of loan you're using. But it's pretty standard, 2 to 6%. So as you get them, and then moving costs, and again that can vary as well. But as you can see, these numbers can add up. So saving a little bit of money beforehand is definitely important, because as much as it's down payment affects you, and tax insurance affect you, there's all these other things that can affect you as well. So they all add up.
Jake, it looks like Tanisha has a question, or she raised her hand. Tanisha, if you want to ask that question, go right ahead. Well, Tanisha's working on that, Jake. Earnest money.
Sure.
What's your spin? When it comes to a first-time home buyer, what's your take on earnest money? Should they give a lot? Should they give a little? What do you see out there?
And a lot of the customers I do just do a simple 500, just to make sure the deal's continuing. I don't know if I have necessarily a preference. I wouldn't put in a max amount. I think keeping it lower is probably the better way to go. Especially because, if anything were to happen where that person were to not be able to get the house and it was their fault, they're out that money anyways. So it's kind of a safer bet. If you know it's a sure thing and you're really, ready to go, putting 1,000, 1,500 is not a bad thing either, though.
And we've seen sometimes when competitive markets, as we've seen in the past, people were offering up more hand money, and that's money that's a check that's going to get cashed, and that check goes towards the purchase of your home. So money, hand money, good faith money, we call it a bunch of different things, but that actually goes towards the purchase of your home. So if you're putting down 2,000, it's going towards the purchase price. But I'm with you, Jake. I think the less you give, the better, as far as the buyer is concerned. Now, there are instances I think where giving more might try to send a signal to the seller that
it might sweeten the pot a little bit.
Yep. Every situation is going to be different. So let's check out the next slide.
Okay.
Tanisha, if you want to come off of mute and ask that question, you go right ahead.
Yes, I have a question. For a first home buyer, where should your credit score should be?
For first time home buyer.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, and I have a question. I'm so sorry. I have two questions. So for the credit score for a first home buyer, and because I am a recipient I do have Section 8. How would that go in the loop of things?
Okay. So for a first credit score, we can go as low as 580 on an FHA loan, as low as 620 on conventional or first time home buyer loans, and then really it's like the higher the better. Sitting around 650 to 700 is very comfortable. 700 to 800 is even better. As a first time home buyer, like I said, I would say the bare minimum you'd want to be is above 580. And then, truly you'd want to be above 620 to 650 is really what you're looking for.
Now, Jake, I'm going to ask a pointed question, and you may not like it. All right. So for anyone listening, you say 580 for FHA. In the last 12 months, how many deals have you been a part of that 580 credit score worked?
Okay. I don't think I've had any on 580 on the dot, but I've had a couple between 580 and 600, and they've gotten them to work.
Okay.
Now a couple of them, they had some derogatory credit as well, and we can get into that in one of the next slides. But they cleaned it up before the process started, and that still worked. So it's all a little bit, it's a little complex. It's not very black and white, but if you have a credit score between 580 and 600, you can still make it work for sure.
Yeah, this skinny back.
Now, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Now, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know like the logistics of things, but having a credit score, a credit score that's 580, does that lower the amount of lenders that you're able to get money to buy a house? That is my next one.
So
if it makes sense.
just to clarify, so you're saying your credit score is 580 and
No, my credit score is not 580.
okay.
It's running at like the 620, 630.
Yeah, that you should be more than fine. And in fact, if you're above 620, we can typically try to do a first-time home buyer mortgage, which will keep your rate as low as we can possibly manage it on our end. You do have to do like a first-time home buyer course for those kind of loans, but it's typically, if you can do a first-time home buyer mortgage over FHA, people tend to do that. FHA loans can have a little more red tape, a little more stricter appraisals, things like that. So we tend to do that. Now, you had another question about Section 8 housing as well. Yeah. Ted, I know that you know a little more about this, but when we do Section 8, we do factor in your Section 8 housing into our calculation. And then if you're using the Section 8 home buyer program, we can utilize that as well.
Right. And I think the tough part with Allegheny County is trying to get a figure for Section 8. A lot of the outlying counties, Beaver County, and I'm familiar with that, they'll give us a solid figure before you even get out there and get started looking for a house. Allegheny County, my understanding from talking to Sandra Behe is we have to actually get the address and they have to get all their information. By the time they can figure out how much they're going to get, that house is gone. It's really, Allegheny County makes it really tough, and that's sort of disappointing, but you still have to try for it because it's at least you can get an idea.
Tanisha, in my mind, the simple math on it is, your rent for your place is $1,000, but based on your income calculation, you're paying $600. So Section 8's paying $400. So what happens then is instead of paying your landlord, they would then send that $400 to your mortgage company, would be my understanding of how it works. Mm-hmm. So it makes it portable for you to go to, purchasing your own home. And it does kind of start with whatever agency, whether you go to McKees Rocks or McKees Port, to kind of get that ball rolling with them, to let them know that you're interested. And they have a great housing choice voucher program outlines for you. So that's a good place to start on that one.
So you're telling me I should start with McKees Rocks first and then come back to you guys as far as paperwork goes? Let
them know that you're interested in the housing choice voucher program, that you'd like the information packet.
Well, then I think I sent something over to you about that. And the caseworker had me in another lady in a email stating that I wanted to be in the program.
Okay. And then they follow up to
how I could be in the program, and it was just basically I had to have over 30 hours of work. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
And then a year of work experience. So I have all of that.
Okay. All right, good. So we'll circle back and talk to your person, your contact there, and we'll see what we can do to get that rolling for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the cost of home ownership. So your monthly payment, again, your comfortable monthly payment. That's what we want, this to be. We don't want it to be the top of your budget. Private mortgage insurance, 0.85%. A lot of mortgages have PMI. We do have a couple, like the CAM loan that we have at Huntington, that don't have PMI, but a lot of them have it on there. That can affect your monthly payment. It'll change it a little bit. Condo and maintenance fees or homeowners association fees, if those are applicable. Utilities, $200 to $400 a month. Lawn and property maintenance, $100 to $250 a month. That could be probably less depending on how active you are in your lawn work. And then home repairs, that's $100 to $300. That could be way higher depending on the month. That could be next to nothing one month and then $900 the next. So that's a fluctuating one. But basically the idea is these all factor into your monthly payment. So when we're trying to figure out your budget, we want to make sure that we leave room for stuff happens. So credit bureaus, when we pull credit for any customer, we'll pull from all three of these bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And what we'll do is we'll pull all three and we'll take the middle of the three. So if one of them is 620, one of them is 600, and one of them is 580, we'll take the 600, and that's what we run with. Now, if there's two borrowers, husband and wife, brother and sister, whatever it is, we take the worst of the two borrowers' middle scores. So if one borrower is 650 and the other borrower is 620, we are using the 620, even if the other one's 650. You could be 800 and the other one's 650. We have to use the 650. So what's in a credit score? Obviously, a big chunks of it are payment history and amount owed. So that's the ones that I'm sure everyone's familiar with. You have credit cards, you make payments on it, make sure you make them on time. You don't want to have too many late payments. Length of credit history. So that's one that I see a lot more when it's, a younger home buyer. If they're 21, 22, 23, and they don't have much credit history, I like to consider it young credit. That the underwriters will look at that too. If you don't have a very long history of paying back debts in general, the underwriters might look at that with a little more scrutiny. New credit. So like if you have a bunch of new credit on your credit report, you haven't had anything for a while, but then you have a whole bunch, the underwriters will look at that too. And then nothing, I'm not saying it's all black and white, but they will look at that with a little more scrutiny. And then types of credit used. That's a very broad brush there, but depending on if you have a ton of credit, but it's all medical bills, it's different than if you have a ton of credit and it's all credit card collections. So it's all kind of a complex gray area. So what makes your perfect home? So what are some of the must-haves in your home? Like you need a pool or walk-in closet or something. That's a lot of people think with their perfect home, but there's obviously a number of factors. What community you would like to live in, that's important for school district, and you don't live near family, live near grandma, like that. I get that. I can't see the bottom. It's cut off for me. Would you want to? No, we can go with it. No, it's okay. Would you want to consider
community, new construction?
Exactly. So new construction is one a lot of people are using these days. It can be a little more expensive and definitely a little more into it. I know Ted does new construction at Huntington, but it can be a viable option if someone has, the wherewithal to do it. Would you consider a remodel or renovation project? This is where I do like to plug one of our loans. We have a CAM loan. It's a low to moderate income borrower loan. It's great. There's no PMI. It's great for people that, maybe are on the low income side of things. And it has what I like to consider like a little mini rehab where you can use it to fix things on a home that, say, a seller might not want to do or refuses to do. And you can use the CAM loan to fund up to $100,000 of rehab and renovation. And it's all for bringing the house up to code. You can't like put a new bathroom on, but you could fix lighting, you could fix electrical, you could fix a roof. I know Ted's done a couple, I've had a couple, and they're great. It's a really great product for people that are maybe looking for a home. They find a perfect place, but there maybe it's just like a big crack on the porch and the seller won't fix it and the appraiser needs it done. You can finance the fixing of it into the project, which is really helpful.
Really good program, especially now.
Yes. And again, it's really just for bringing the house up to code. So it's not like it's this huge project, but if it's something really little that is still going to create an obstacle because like a seller won't do it, which I've seen a lot of recently. A lot of sellers just don't want to put the effort in. Then that CAM loan can be a lifesaver. Then consult a real estate professional. I always tell you to consult a real estate professional. They are very helpful. They can do a really good job for you, and they can do things that me and Ted can't. And also they can do things that me and Ted really aren't supposed to be doing, like negotiating with your seller. So it's very important to have a good realtor. If you ever need one, you can always reach out. I'm sure Jonathan's got a bunch. Me and Ted have contacts. But I think it's always a good thing to at least consult with a realtor on the situation at the very least. And I think using them is very important. One thing I always like to mention, if people not always know this, you as a buyer are not paying your realtor out of pocket necessarily. There might be an admin fee for the loan, but the commission the realtor is getting paid is coming out of the sale of the house. So you are not paying them a ton of money on the commission. They are making money off the sale of the home. So you don't have to shell out $3 or $4 grand to pay your realtor. It's maybe a couple $300 admin fee, and then the realtor is basically getting paid out of the sale. So they're working for you. What real estate agents can do for you is perfect. It's perfect segue here. Listen and provide an objective voice. Finding homes in the area, that's obviously very important, because me and Ted aren't going to be researching all the homes for you. If you find one, we can tell you what everything is on it, but they have the MLS system. They're going to look it up. They'll guide you through the process. They'll help you find a home inspector. They're basically your other first point of contact besides a mortgage officer. They're going to be the person you call when stuff goes wrong, when the seller's negotiating something crazy. They're the ones that are going to be in your corner, and they're going to help you out. So selecting a mortgage officer. This one's easy. Just call Ted and he'll figure it out for you. No, trustworthy, available, knowledgeable are always very important. I like to always say honest. That's what I try to do every time. I'll try to tell you exactly what's going on with your budget. I won't try to sugarcoat it and make it sound better than it is. I think it's better to be realistic and optimistic at the same time. When you're looking for a mortgage officer, it's sometimes good to get a couple different opinions on a couple different loans. Different banks or in brokerages have different loan products. And one of them might be perfect for you, and another one might not be, even if it's good for somebody else. So it's definitely good to get a couple opinions on it. The interest rates could be slightly different depending on the situation. Loan fees and costs. We have a couple products and promos at Huntington to help with closing cost fees, but other banks might have something different that it works as well for you. And I'm not going to be the kind of guy that thinks that every single person should go to Huntington. I think that we can do a really good job for everyone that does come to Huntington, but there might be something else out there for somebody else, another product, another promotion that really can do a good job for you. And I think that's important that everyone knows that. Considerations when you're choosing a mortgage. So how long do you plan to live in the home you buy? That's important because there's things like ARMs that we don't have to get into too much. I think it's on the next slide, but if you're only planning on living in a home for 3 to 5 years, you can get an adjustable rate mortgage, keep your rate as low as possible, and then you're going to sell, so you don't have to worry about that variable rate when it comes through. Do you expect your finances to change? I dealt with a couple recently that it was her and her mother. Her mother was 96. They were buying a home together, and she was just worried that if anything, God forbid, happened to her mother, that she would be able to afford the mortgage on her own. So we made sure we budgeted that into the situation. Are you comfortable with a fluctuating mortgage payment, or do you prefer the same monthly payment for a full term of the loan? That's basically like, do you like variable rate or fixed? Depending on the situation, right now, fixed is more secure, but if it's a low rate environment, variable rate can be very beneficial too.
Jake, just sort of
typically
one
all the
thing
mortgages we do are fixed.
Well, it's okay. I was just going to throw one thing out there is a lot of times too, especially with rates being a little bit on the higher side right now, a lot of the programs that banks offer, they'll help you get into the house, which I know Huntington does, and a lot of other banks do too. So the banks are really trying to help. But I think one thing we do special is when it comes time to refinance, we cover those same costs again in a lot of the areas. And it really makes it a big difference when rates do drop down, because if you have to go through $3,000 or $4,000 in closing costs, yes, you can wrap most of those into the loan. But instead of $3,000 or $4,000, if it's $500, makes a big difference. So again, you have to do your homework and make sure that you're doing the right, you're using the right program for yourself.
And I always like to say, like, you're going to have your realtor working for you. You're going to have your mortgage officer working for you. Your title company's going to work for you. But at the end of the day, you as the borrower do have to put in a little bit of work to make sure you're getting what's right for you. Types of mortgage products available. So most of the mortgages we typically do are fixed rate mortgages. The rate won't change. You can always refinance it later to get a better rate if the rate isn't to your satisfaction, but they're not going to change too much. There's adjustable rate mortgages, like I said before, they will adjust after a certain period of time to a variable rate. And people typically use those if they're not going to live there for a very long time. Types of mortgage products, we have FHA loans, conventional loans, VA loans, construction, home style renovation loans, which is like a rehab loan, and portfolio mortgages. So we have our own suite of Huntington products that are not, they're not the same as other banks. We have our own particular one. Again, whenever you talk to me or Ted, we would help you out figuring out which one of these would work best for you. Some of them are very obvious. Like if it's a VA loan and you're not a military person, it's not going to work. But other ones could be. You could have a credit score of 621, and it might work better to do an FHA loan because of just your expenses or just your student loan budget's high, things like that. So again, we work with you to make sure what's best for you. But these are different products. The one thing I like to mention is home style renovation loans. If you wanted to do a renovation and finance it into a purchase, you can do that. Construction loans is a very similar idea. And then the rest of them, conventional VA and FHA loans, work in similar ways. They do have some nuances that are different. Down payment assistance programs. This is one of my favorite categories. There's state programs, local ones, Dream Make, home buying assistance. There's a lot of different programs out there to help. And just like we were saying before, it's good to kind of get a big picture of what you're looking at, what programs are out there, but you can sometimes stack them. You can get multiple programs to work for you. And that could be the difference between paying $12,000-$15,000 in cash to close to $1,000 to $2,000 in cash to close. I'm sure Ted's seen that before, where you can get anywhere from, I've had customers that it was gonna be 13,000 and it's under 2 when we finally stack up all the down payment assistance and LMIT programs and stuff like that. So that, I mean, even if you have the money, that's a huge difference. Saving 10 grand up front is a big deal, and that can really help you out when you get into that home and you have the money there for your family. To get pre-approved. So what is getting pre-approved? You complete a pre-approval application and supply your mortgage loan officer with all the necessary documentation to check both your financial background and your credit history. So basically, we would have a conversation. I usually send out our blend application. It's our online app, or we start an app in person and fill out all your information, your job history, all your personal information, contact history, and then you have to supply me with necessary documentation. That usually is your W-2s and pay stubs if you're regularly employed, or your tax returns if you're self-employed, and your bank statements. With that, I can typically get you pre-approved. The pre-approval will come with a cost sheet. And what the pre-approval does is 2 parts. One, it tells any seller that you're serious when you come to the table with an offer. You come to the table and you said, I talked to Jake at Huntington Bank. He vetted me for $150,000 mortgages or less, and I want to make an offer on your home. So that seller knows that you're serious. But the second part is that cost sheet comes in there, and it tells you what taxes and insurance would look like on that house, what your monthly payment would look like, what fees would look like on the purchase of the loan. If there is like a promo, like an FHA or LMIT promo that we could add on, what that would look like to subtracting from the other fees. So it not only can give you obviously buying or offering power, but it's a great way to keep you in line and make sure your budget's on task, especially your payment budget once you buy the house.
So for anyone out there, LMIT is low to moderate income tracks. So like a voting district, there's different part of the 10-year census is to develop the income tracks. So based on the income of that area, there are some programs that are eligible. So depending on where you buy in one of those low or moderate income tracks, there may be financing offers out there that Huntington might be able to help you with. So,
And particularly our LMIT program, what we'll do is if you find a house that's located in a low to moderate income area, we will pay all but $500 of your closing costs. So it typically saves anywhere from, I usually think anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the size of the home.
And beware, I just want to throw out, just beware if you're doing a pre-approval and your lender isn't asking for pay stubs or W-2s or bank statements, and they're not quizzing you, honestly, there's lenders that'll issue pre-approval lenders that are really not worth the paper they're written on. And then people go out and do a home inspection, they pay for an appraisal, and the loan gets turned down.
Yeah.
That happens way too often. So, if your lender isn't asking for those items and issuing you a pre-approval letter, just be careful.
That's a great point, Deb. Because again, sometimes there's people out there with less integrity, so you got to make sure you cover your own bases. So you found a home. It's time to do some research, make an offer. Like I said, you'll make an offer, and then if they take it, you'll work up a purchase agreement. You'll present the purchase agreement to me and Ted, and then we will start the application and submit for a full purchase of the property. It usually takes about 30 days from when we submit till when we can close on the deal. Sometimes we can do a little quicker. Certain deals might be a little longer, but 30 days is a pretty good marker. What will you do? You will provide a check for earnest money to your real estate agent. So that $500-ish, you'll provide a check immediately when that starts. What your real estate agent will do, will complete a competitive market analysis, deposit that earnest money, order a home inspection, which they always do pretty much right off the bat, and help navigate negotiations. So what I like to say is there's certain sellers that might be super nice, very easy to deal with, but they're probably not the norm. When a realtor helps you navigate negotiations, that's usually because the seller's trying to get what's best for them, or what they think is best for them, and a realtor can help you negotiate between that seller and be like, okay, you want this, but then we want this then. So that's why, again, having a good realtor is always important. Like in the last slide is negotiations that just aren't always just about pricing. That's very important. So your offer's accepted. So they accept the offer. You get a purchase agreement. What a lender will do is we'll provide an estimate for potential rate and monthly principal and interest. They collect all the paperwork that has been requested, review your loan estimate. So basically, we'll get all the paperwork we were asking for. If we did a pre-approval right, we'll already have mostly everything anyways. And then we'll submit the loan and you'll get an LE within the first 24 to 48 hours. You'll have to sign your loan estimate. By signing it, you're not signing it saying all these numbers are completely accurate and I'm okay with the loan as it is right now. It's just signing saying you received the documents. Things can change throughout the whole process. You can change based on what you want. You can ask for a lower loan amount, more down payment you want to put in, or it can change based on, the taxes came back and they were a little higher than we thought. So things will change from the numbers when you start to the numbers when you end. But that's whenever you get a loan estimate, you just want to sign them, basically saying that you got them, and it won't delay anything. And then you'll send the purchase contract to the lender, which you have done usually right when you get the offer in.
some things you can't change. You can't change from a conventional to an FHA.
Correct.
You can't change reducing your down payment. So when you sign a contract, you're basically giving them an outline of how you're planning on financing it. So there are some things you can't change once you're under agreement.
Right. And the purchase contract, all the standard ones in PA will have all that written on the contract. So you can basically fill in the blank in certain areas, especially if there's a section just for the mortgage lender's information and what our loan is. And usually you use the pre-approval that you received to make that section work. But you're exactly right, Jonathan. Like there's certain things you can't change, like switching from a conventional to an FHA because of the appraisal. But certain things you can. So it's nice to be knowledgeable from the beginning. And again, us as mortgage officers, we try to communicate further out anything. If something does change during the loan process, we'll try to give you a call immediately so that you know what's going on. Right. And perfect. What your lender will do, keep you informed. That's exactly what I was saying. Call you when more information is needed. So this is actually very common. you can present all the documentation up front, and then we might need a couple more things. The underwriters might be like, hey, we need verification of this deposit, or we need your student loan, payment plan so we can utilize that instead of a percentage. There's a lot of things you might need to present even after you started the application just for submission. And it's sometimes it can be, you feel like a lot, but it's just doing what's best for you. If you get in as quick as possible, it's just moving the process along quicker. Request your appraisal to be scheduled. We do that essentially immediately on a purchase. We'll request the appraisal to be scheduled. They'll reach out to the seller or the seller's agent to schedule it, contact you, but decision on your loan. So if you get conditional approval, let you know immediately. And send a commitment letter. It's the same thing. We'll let you know immediately. We'll send a commitment letter out. What you will do is provide requested information as quickly as possible. Like I was saying, the quicker you can do it, the quicker it moves the loan forward. And I've told you some loans have just been held up because customers just didn't send stuff in quickly. And it's nothing bad. We still got the loan to close, but it maybe took another 15 days. And it's always stressful for everybody. What your real estate agent will do, coordinate your appraisal. That's also typically the seller's agent will do that. And then coordinate necessary inspections. Your real estate agent will definitely do that.
Just a reminder, anyone out there, don't give anyone an original document. You want to give a copy.
Yep.
So that you can retain the original in case it would become lost. You want to be in control of the main document. So make copies, and nice, crisp, clear copies that aren't cutting off any information, but you do not want to hand over anything original.
Your house closing. So this would be 30 days in. You got all the information in, and you're getting ready to close. So what your lender will do, will confirm the rate, fees, and required funding for closing. If there's any discrepancies, we'll work with you to make sure they're fixed up. Confirm your scheduled closing date. So we'll call you, like, hey, I wanted to close on the 14th at 3:00 at my, the real estate agent's office. That's perfect. We can get that. And review your closing disclosure. So we'll send that out, and we'll make sure that you look at everything. You will have to sign that as well, just like the LE. And you want to sign it as soon as possible, because at Huntington, once those closing disclosures go out, you want to sign them and as quick as possible, especially at the end of the process, because we don't want to have that hold up the process at all, is having to wait for that to be signed. What your real estate agent will do is complete the final walkthrough with you. So they'll go and you'll look at the whole property, make sure like nothing was taken out or all the copper wasn't taken out of the basement or something like that. Attend closing with you always, and hand over the keys. So you usually get the keys from the seller's agent. We'll bring those in. And then what the title company will do, provide title services, provide escrow services, and offer title insurance. They're the one who kind of middleman the closing process, is the title company. So typically when you're writing out a check for cash to close at the end, you'll actually write it to the title company at the end of the process. Then you close on your home. Congratulations. Now you can go moving all that stuff in, all the fun stuff, carrying for refrigerators and washing machines. It's what I like to say is a purchase at home can be a very big, important purchase. It can be very stressful. And me and Ted's job is to help you out the whole way through, to make sure that it's as easy as possible. I can't say it's easy, but easy as possible for you, so that if you have any questions, you can call us, text us, make sure you have all the information, and we'll go to bat for you. We'll work with down payment assistance programs for you. We'll talk to your real estate agent. We'll talk to the title company. We'll make sure that we're helping you out as best that we can.
It's so important to surround yourself with a good team. Your lender, your realtor, your home inspector, all those people that you can trust. Like Jake said, it's never going to be an easy process. It just isn't. But our job's to assist you through that. And you get a good team around you, makes it a lot of bit easier for sure.
Jake, we're running out of time, but I did get a couple questions that came in, so hopefully you can help some of these. So we'll see where we go here. But the first one came in. It says, "Where do I get started if I'm a low-income household?"
So, really, I would suggest you just talking to me or Ted. We can get you pre-approved to see. Yeah, really.
Same process, right?
And even if I had this conversation with a gentleman earlier. He had everything set up, but his credit score was about 530. So what I did was I sent them
Mhm.
some information on some credit bureaus. I set them up a game plan. We actually got them set up with a savings account at the branch. So we're not going to just turn you away if you're not just quite ready yet. We're going to set up a game plan for you, whether that be 6 months, a year, 2 years out, whatever your time frame is. But even if you're low income borrower, just talking to us and getting that game plan started, and a lot of the times people who think that they're not ready can usually get it done.
Yeah. So the process is the same for low income as it is for high income, is to
Yep.
talk to someone that they know and trust. So one of the things I thought of, Jake, when I saw low incomes, have you done any city URAs with some of those grants that they're offering?
I don't know if I use the grants. I've used down payment assistance with the URA, and they're great.
Okay.
They do a really good job. And that's another thing. Like they'll do, I think $7,500
Yep.
For certain borrowers for down payment assistance. So
Yeah.
that you couple that with the LMIT program with seller's assist, you can save tons of money there.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen a couple deals in the city where there's some pretty generous grant money being
mhm.
shared with people. So now, if you don't want to live in a city, that doesn't help you. But if you're on a low income and you're trying to leverage, if you're open to the city, they've got a couple programs in there that seem very, very generous. So
Yeah, and you can stack those programs, like I said. So you can use a grant program and use down payment assistance and use seller's assist and use an LMIT. So there's definitely, you don't have to just pick one. You can pick a bunch of them.
here was the other one that came in and says, and so we'll kind of work this out, is how do you know what the sales price breaks down to in order to get an idea of your monthly mortgage payment?
So what we'll do is we'll take the sales price is, for the sake of example, you're 100,000, and
Yep.
your first time home buyer, so the loan amount will be 97,000. You can do the low as 3%. So we'll take that 97,000 and we'll break it down based on your rate. So your credit score will affect this a little bit based on your rate and the term of the loan you pick. Typically, everyone picks 30-year terms for first-time home buyers, but there is 20, 15-year terms. So we'll take that, and then we'll usually factor in taxes and insurance as well, and then we'll do the math on it to basically see what exactly your payment would be on that 97,000. Now, if you were to take the same property, 100,000, and put 20,000 down instead of 3,000, that whole calculation would look a lot different.
I see here, Sobi, you have a question. What can we help you with tonight? Thanks.
Yeah, so I am in a kind of volatile field. So I may or may not live in Pittsburgh for the next 5 years, but just depending on what my field ends up becoming. I'm an educator, and so I'm not sure if I'll be in Pittsburgh outside of my contract. So I'm
Sure.
just wondering, is it still worth exploring it if I end up staying here for 5 years, wanting to buy a house for that term, and then I have to move like across the country right after?
I would say yes. I mean, I'm obviously not the end all be all on what your decision needs to be, but if you were to buy a house this year and then in 5 years move, you're going to be able to sell that house, hopefully for a profit, and then use that money to either purchase a home where you move to or have a little savings account for if you are renting, if you need to rent for a little bit before you find a home. If you were to just rent in that time, when you move, you're not going to have any of that ability. So I would say yes, it's definitely a good idea to own a home, even if you're not going to live there forever, because it is still an investment. It is still important to have that investment because whenever you do move, you do sell, you have some money moving with you. Even if you move, if you're like, I decided to stay here, but I'm going to move to a bigger house in, Baldwin, you can do that, and you can still sell that old house and move to the new one, and have a little money in your pocket when you do it.
And Sylvia, a good way to look at that is if you look at what home prices were, say right around COVID and what they are now. Not that that's going to happen every time period, because again, growing up in Pittsburgh, and I'm from Beaver County, and I live in Lawrence County now. Our prices are more stagnant than other areas, but these last 4 years have been really good as far as building wealth in your house. And I still think, I think all the numbers show that over the years, that's one thing that sort of continues to happen is, continuing to build wealth through owning a home.
maybe part of the factor for you might be, will your new employer pay for moving expenses? Will they pay to get you out of your home loan? Will they help you with that as part of that transition? So that's right on the edge, though. I mean, I think 5 years is a pretty short period. So that's a good question. And
Yes.
but that might be one, Jake, where maybe you think about an adjustable rate mortgage, where
Yeah.
getting a low rate for 5 years is maybe the right tool, maybe not, but maybe the right tool for those kind of special
Yeah, that's exactly right.
circumstances. So,
Adjustable rate mortgage can work perfectly there. And if you do plan on staying in the house, it's just a matter of a refinance at that point. If you don't want to get the rate to be variable at that point.
that's a tough one.
Can you send the slides for this? I didn't get to take a lot of notes. I apologize.
Yeah. So, Jake, do you want to give your email address, and so
Yeah.
we can send you to get your slides?
Yeah. I don't.
Get
Can I do it in a
that
chat
slides.
here, or is there a chat?
Let's see.
And
So,
anybody that's on, don't be afraid to ask questions. Even if you think it's not an intelligent question, the only dumb question is the ones you don't ask. So, reach out to us. That's what, Jake and I have been doing this for a while. And better to ask questions than to make a mistake. So any questions at all, reach out and talk.
I know Ted's email. It's ted.george@huntington.com. That's pretty easy. Jake, is
Yeah, I
your
just put mine in the chat, but I don't
easy?
know if it. But mine's jake.c.carson. So it's my middle initial in there, but same format. jake.c.carson@huntington.com.
Pretty easy to do. So fantastic. Jake, do you want to share your other contact information? Do you have a telephone number you prefer, or?
Yeah, I just typically use my cell. I can type it in the chat again too, but it's 412-266-2076.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah, it looks like I can only see anything from Jonathan Weaver. I don't have the ability to look at the chat, just so you
Let me do this. So what's your email address?
So it's
why don't
my
you email
name.
me? Yeah, why don't you email me, Sylvia, and I'll forward Jake's information for you.
That's
Thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you.
That'd be best, I think. All right, good. Ted, Jake?
I think that's any of us that was given from Jonathan. We can only see whatever he put up.
I was typing in chat. Now I can see. I apologize.
Yep, we'll get that out. So, Ted, Jake, we can't thank you enough for sharing with us this evening. Certainly informative, and I know there's going to be more questions after people hang up. So, Jake, give me your phone number one more time so people can reach you.
Sure. 412-266-2076.
Okay, and Mr. George?
It is 724-622-4162.
Good, fantastic. So,
And,
thank
yeah,
you.
appreciate you guys all hanging in there with us. Great stuff. I love the conversation. So, any questions at all, reach out to Jake or Jonathan or me or whatever, and we'll get you the answers you need to move ahead and help you however we can.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for spending the time with us, everyone.
Yep. And we're gonna have another homebuyer club. It looks like maybe the third week of March.
Okay.
We're going to talk about PHFA K-Fit program for anyone out there thinking about purchasing a home and utilizing that program. So we look forward to invitations coming out in March for that event. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good night,
Good night.
everybody.